Episode 70 of Unentitled Sports is live. We are here to give you a preview and a post-view of Game 7 of the NBA Finals. We'll talk a little bit about the San Francisco Giants and, of course, the NHL Playoffs, which have concluded. So, let's get right into it. We are currently recording this Saturday, June 21st. It is about 9 p.m. right now. So tomorrow, on Sunday, Game 7 will be played. Pacers at Thunder, and who knows what's going to happen. This series, this finals, has been far more two-sided than we expected. If you go back and listen to the last episode, we both said it's going to be Thunder in 5, guaranteed, lock it up, because the Thunder were so much better on paper than the Pacers. And that still remains, like break it down player by player. The Thunder have a much more talented roster, but something about the Pacers, man. They just try harder. They just win in every marginal area, it feels like. And, they've been able to take 3 games so far in this series. And who's to say that won't happen again in Game 7? I think they've got a real opportunity to win Game 7. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about it a lot. And I think what I've sort of concluded about the Pacers is this is my sort of thesis on them. They themselves are not they're a good team. They're a very, very good team. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the strengths in that team don't lie in them being a good team. The strengths of that team lie in them shutting down the other team and not allowing the other team to play to their strengths and not allowing the other team to be a good team. It's not necessarily that they play good basketball, but against the Pacers, it's really hard to play good basketball if you're the opponent. That's sort of what I've taken away from watching these Pacers, because they did it particularly to the they did it to the Knicks and the Bucks as well. But the Cavaliers was where I think before this series where we saw it best. They just did not allow the Cavaliers to play good basketball, and they didn't allow the Cavaliers to play the kind of basketball they had been playing all season that won them 64 games or how many ever games it was. And so what I mean by that is their offense is so fast-paced, run and gun, transition. There's no way to defend that. So if you're a good defensive basketball team, well, that doesn't really matter against the Pacers because the Pacers' style of offense is sort of prone against good defense, and you can't really play good defense against the Pacers' style of offense. And on the other side of the ball, the Pacers play high-tempo, aggressive, force a lot of turnovers defense, and even if you're a good offense, that's a very hard defense to play against. So I know I'm starting to repeat myself, but in summary, I think what makes the Pacers so good is that they don't allow other teams to play well, and they don't allow other teams to play the style of play that they're used to playing.
I think it makes sense because, most teams, their philosophy throughout the regular season is also to establish a half-court identity, right? And build their offense that way. That's not how the Pacers did it. The Pacers, for the entire season, have been this run-and-gun offense with some of the highest pace in NBA history, expecting to score most of their buckets in transition. So when you get to the playoffs and you have, a defense that is outmatching you, like say the Warriors go up against the Thunder or, any other team that's a solid offensive team but is not as good as the defense of the Thunder this year, how do you get around that? Well, you skirt the defense by playing transition offense. That's a large way of doing it and shooting these relatively open buckets very early in the shot clock because that's when you're going to get them. You're not going to be able to make a play happen later in the shot clock because the opposing defense is just too good. So the fact that the Thunder have been practicing this in essence all year,
you mean the Pacers?
That's correct. Yeah, the Pacers have been practicing this all year. Now they're here in the playoffs where they're actually getting tested on it, and it's been working. It worked, like you said, against the Knicks. It worked against the Bucks. It worked against the Cavs even better. And those teams were not teams that in the regular season focused on pace as much as the Pacers did. So there's something to be said, that style of play and how it might lend itself specifically to playoff basketball. And then the other side of it is their defense. They're a very high effort team offensively and defensively. And that is what wins playoff games. If you're able to lock up the other team and the other team doesn't have, that bailout of such a cohesive offensive team in transition, you're bound to win a lot of games.
The defense to offense component of their game is probably the best in the league.
Exactly, yeah. So it makes sense. On paper, like we said, this is not a great team. It is a solid team. This is a team that has 2 All-Stars on it. But outside of that, it's not a team that you would expect to be world beaters. And they've been able to do it in their own way, and it's been incredibly exciting. It's very hard at this point in the playoffs to not be a Pacers fan. I think everybody, unless you're in Oklahoma City, how are you not rooting for the Pacers right now? They're just such an inspiration.
I just think, with the Pacers, they are so good without necessarily being better or more talented than the other team. The way that they've been winning games is by establishing their style of play, and their style of play is very conducive to not allowing the other team to establish their style of play. So in playing to their strengths, it also forces the other team. Well, there's not really much they can do about that, and it forces the other team to play to their weaknesses. That's sort of how I think the Pacers have sort of. I don't like saying the word overperformed because it implies that they don't deserve it. I think they do deserve it, but I think they've overperformed. And I want to take this moment. I want to take this time to define what the word overperform means to me.
Let's break it down.
If you simulate these playoffs 1,000 times, I think the average outcome for the Pacers is probably not making the finals. And so I think in this outcome, they have exceeded the simulated average outcome. So that's why I use the word overperform. Does that mean I don't think they've earned it? I don't think they've deserved it? No, of course not. They've absolutely earned it. They absolutely deserve it. But all I'm saying is, if you simulate this playoffs 1,000 times, on far less than half the outcomes do the Pacers do this well.
Well, there is a certain law correspondent of this podcast who has a very interesting opinion on this exact thing. He believes that rather than this being such an impressive win for the Pacers, wow, how did they do it? It takes away from the overall impressiveness of winning an NBA championship. That is, if the Pacers do go on to win an NBA championship. He says that if the Pacers win a championship, the award itself is stained, and the club
Wow.
of NBA championship caliber, NBA winning championship winning caliber teams is just not as good anymore. I think there's something to be said about that. And I would hope that, obviously the worst case scenario, if this is true, if what Eli's saying is true, that it takes away from what it means to win an NBA championship, to be a mid team that goes on to win a championship, then you would expect that more owners in the league are going to see what happened with the Pacers, and they're going to say, oh, we don't have to go and put together a God squad. We don't have to, keep drafting for years until we can hit on 4 stars at the same time and then add a superstar on top of that and go out and make a run, try to make it last a couple years. No, we can just be a solid team, add 1 all-star level player, and then get lucky and win a finals this year. And
parity will have been restored.
Well, will it have been restored, or will it be less teams would be trying? Because, ownership, right, obviously they want to win a championship for as little money as possible, if possible, right? And there are
I see what you're saying.
Of teams. There are a lot of teams that aren't really trying to win a championship. They would feel very happy if they happen to go on a crazy playoff run and then lock themselves into a championship. And this might lend itself to saying, hey, that could actually happen.
So I totally see what you're saying now. But when you started going down that line of thought, what I thought you were trying to say was, hey, anything can look at the Pacers, anything can happen, anyone can win a championship. This will in turn make more owners try, and it will because for a long time, it seemed like the prevailing thought in the NBA was, oh, unless you can put together a team that on paper looks like a championship contending team, there's no point. You may as well just tank. There's no point in trying to make the playoffs if you're not going to be a top 3 seed. I thought that's what you were trying to say, and then the Pacers were sort of disproving that.
I think there's probably 2 ways of looking at it. I think if you are a horrible team, what this does is it takes both sides, both ends of the spectrum of teams in the NBA, and kind of brings them together. If you are the Washington Wizards, oh, okay, maybe it makes sense to go put together a relatively decent team because we might win a championship if we are the 7th seed in the East, you know? But if you are like the 76ers, who have been historically good, they rather than say,
or the Celtics, who have a massive payroll.
Right, they can then say, it's okay if we're not the greatest team on earth. We can be a relatively average team, like to above average team, and then potentially still win a championship anyways.
Yeah. I think it will. I think it will encourage the mid teams to try harder, but it will discourage the good teams from trying as hard to keep it together and paying to keep it together.
Yeah, and that might be the case. I don't know. I think it really says more rather than about that. It says more about the way that the Pacers are run, and obviously the players being incredibly clutch throughout these playoffs, and the coaching style. I think that maybe the league would just tend more towards that, more run and gun, more pace, more hard defense.
Mike D'Antoni was ahead of his time.
Hey, if Mike D'Antoni was around to see this, which he is, he'd probably be pretty happy about it.
Yeah, I bet he is.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to circle back to our Stanford law correspondent's take.
Yes.
I see what he's saying and where he's coming from, but that is an extremely elitist take. And, it almost seems like there's a certain somebody who goes to a certain very, very elite selective college, and then he's a little worried about someone getting into his school that's maybe not up to his standard.
Ooh,
I think he might be. I think he might have some like pent up aggression about a student that might be in his class that he doesn't feel deserves to be there, and is tainting his beautiful, prestigious Stanford. No, we're just kidding, Eli.
I mean,
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Argue that back towards him and say, hey, buddy, you went to UCSB. You played great,
right,
at UCSB. Did so well that you got into Stanford, but it taints what it really means.
Exactly,
to be a
it taints.
graduate.
Yeah.
Right.
The Stanford class is tainted by a UCSB graduate, or undergrad going to school there.
This is deep. This runs.
Just
really
kidding,
deep.
Eli. We're giving you a hard time, like we like to.
Well, we talked about what it would mean if the Pacers won a championship this year. Maybe we can speak a little bit more on that. Maybe just for the legacy of Tyrese Halliburton and the other players that are on this team. Pascal Siakam, for example, who then goes to being a 2-time NBA champion on 2 different teams where he was an incredibly important contributor.
And I think if the Pacers win Game 7, Siakam's winning Finals MVP.
And is he a Hall of Famer? Is Pascal Siakam a Hall of Famer?
I'll start by saying I don't think he needs to win this championship to be a Hall of Famer. And I'll also continue by saying if he does win this championship and retires tomorrow, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
Really?
But if he wins this championship and wins a Finals MVP and then sort of retires at a normal age and whatever and finishes his career with the sort of projected trajectory, however you want to look at it, I believe that is a projectory. I believe that is a Hall of Fame career. I think if the Pacers win and he wins Finals MVP, Siakam's trajectory for the rest of his career has him in the Hall of Fame. And even if he doesn't, I think he can still. It's not like too late. He still can do things to get himself in the Hall of Fame.
I think that's also true. The second part about if he doesn't win a championship, he still can make the Hall of Fame. However, I would disagree with. I think that if he wins a championship and he wins Finals MVP, he can retire the next day and be a Hall of Famer. Especially if he wins Finals MVP. 2 championships, a pretty long. I think he's 33 at this point.
Not quite. I think he's like 30.
32. Well,
chat. How old is Pascal Siakam?
Let's see. We need an AI assistant. We should just add a producer. This is an AI.
You're looking at 2 of them.
The first podcast.
Siakam just turned 31 2 months ago.
Okay. I mean, so he's had a
middle-aged,
solid career in the NBA. Obviously, he has more to do, and if he does win this championship, it might not be the last time he does win a championship. He'll be around for a while,
right?
So, but I do think that 2 rings and a Finals MVP that's Hall of Fame level stuff. That's better,
and a Finals MVP runner-up,
right? Yeah, that's true. That's true. And if Andre Iguodala is a Hall of Famer, and I believe that he is, then I think Pascal Siakam is also a Hall of Famer.
Well, Iguodala also has 4 rings. Siakam,
but I still think that Siakam's career is, if he wins a championship this year, he would win Finals MVP as the best player on his team this year. Maybe not the best player, but the one who performed the best in the finals. Obviously, Andre Iguodala's Finals MVP was a little bit of an asterisk there.
doesn't say that on the trophy.
That's true. That's true, and they wouldn't say it in the Hall of Fame speech.
Right. It doesn't say Finals MVP, but you weren't the best player on your team.
So what about Tyrese Halliburton? Is he a top 10 player in the league after this?
That's a great question. And how long ago was it that we were chatting about in our group chat our top 10 players in the NBA?
Yes.
Yeah, I think for those who haven't been keeping up with our Instagram reels and all that, I think the first tier of NBA players is anywhere between 4 to 6 players. And then the second tier of NBA players, I think, rounds out the top 10. I think if Halliburton wins, or if the Pacers win and therefore Halliburton wins, I think Halliburton forces himself into that second tier. That would now be the top 11 players in the NBA. And I think if he loses, he would be in the third tier. That's, the 10th to 15th best player in the NBA.
Well, I'll just bring up my rankings from earlier this year when we talked about this in the chat. I think I'm a little bit more granular on what a tier really qualifies as. I think that if you were to really break it down, the top tier of NBA stars in the league is just 3 players. That's Jokic, Giannis, and I put Luka in there as well. But really, if I was to break that down, it's tier 1A as Jokic, Giannis, and Luka are in tier 1B. Then tier 2, I have Shea, Steph, Kawhi. This is all when healthy, by the way. Kawhi, Tatum, and Anthony Edwards. Then here in tier 3, this is what I put. This is also kind of going into the NBA Finals. Tier 3, I have Kevin Durant, Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Davis. Tier 4 is when we're going to see Halliburton. Halliburton is alongside Wembanyama, Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Devin Booker, LeBron James, John Morant, and Jalen Brunson.
Wow. First of all, where's Joel Embiid? Because if you're willing to give other players the benefit of the when healthy benefit of the doubt, I don't think it's fair.
No, you're so right.
Embiid.
I must have forgot Embiid. If Embiid is healthy, I would probably put Embiid in that tier 3 as well. SGA, Steph, Kawhi, Tatum, Anthony Edwards. I would put Joel Embiid there.
All right. Well, now that you bring it up, I feel obligated to share my tiers. And you know what? I'm gonna sound silly talking about it, but this is how I want to do it. This is my tier rankings. Let's begin. Tier 1A, Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I know you are an SGA fader. I am an SGA truther. I think SGA, look, he is one game away from winning a championship, an MVP, a Finals MVP, and a scoring title in the same season. If that doesn't get you into Tier 1A, I don't know what does. This isn't me saying he's better than Jokic. You can be in Tier 1A and not be better than Jokic. The way I have it, though, I have Jokic and SGA, both in Tier 1A. Tier 1B, by himself, is Giannis. Because Giannis is a Tier 1 player, but he's not on a Tier 1 team. And I think if you take a look at their resume the last 3 years, even though I think Giannis is just as good of a player, he's not nearly as accomplished. So that's why I have him in the same tier, but a different sub-tier. Tier 1C, Luka Doncic.
We've got a lot of tiers in this tier.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Just wait for it. Tier 1C is Luka. Again, I think he is just as good a basketball player as the other 3, but I think with sort of the awkward season he's had, both with injury and obviously the trade and the adjustments he's had to make because of that, obviously he didn't have as good a season as those other guys, but I think he's just as good, so that's why I have him in Tier 1C. And then in Tier 1D, I have Joel Embiid. And then
how is this not Tier 2?
Just
how is Tier 1D not Tier 2?
I told you, man. I started this with telling you it was weird, so you can't criticize me. Okay, that's
Sorry.
Therefore, you have to. Yeah, I acknowledge that I'm doing this a little bit unorthodox, so therefore I'm right, and you can't criticize me. Tier 1. Yeah, thank you. Tier 1D. I have Joel Embiid, and that's just sort of an extenuation of kind of the waiver I gave Luka. Because when we've seen Embiid play, the last time we've seen a fully healthy Embiid, he won an MVP. But it's been okay. But it's been 2 full seasons since we've seen that. But when Embiid is playing healthy, he is as good a basketball player, at least in the regular season, as all those other guys. Now we have tier 2, and this is in no particular order. Tier 2, we have Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, LeBron James, and Jason Tatum. Tier 3, I have Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, Victor Wembanyama, and Kawhi Leonard.
Okay, and you're saying basically that if Tyrese Halliburton wins an NBA championship, then he will be upgraded into that tier 2 of players being on the same level as Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, and Jason Tatum. Right
and
now.
LeBron James.
And LeBron. And obviously this is to everybody, right? This is like a current ranking. This is not an all-time, obviously.
Yes.
Steph Curry and LeBron James.
I hope that goes without saying, but you never know.
Yes. Well, I think that's really interesting analysis. I kind of agree with what you're saying, bringing him up into that echelon of players. I think I had him there as well in my if Tyrese Halliburton wins a championship rankings.
Because even if he wins a championship, we still haven't seen that full 82 game dominance from Tyrese Halliburton that we've seen from all those guys in tier 1.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know, like to a greater extent what like Jamal Murray was like, on his championship run and how he had been in the playoffs, saying, hey, Jamal Murray's a solid player in the regular season, but in the playoffs he's just like incredible, and he proved it by winning a championship. And then everybody was like, oh shit, like Jamal Murray's actually a top 20 player this league. But since then he's obviously played a lot worse. Everything that happened with Jamal Murray, he got hurt. And Halliburton is just objectively better than Jamal Murray. So yeah, it makes sense.
The word you're looking for is playoff riser.
Playoff riser. Those are 2 words. Yes.
Sorry, the phrase you're looking for, the term you're looking for.
Thank you.
There's a hyphen in there. Sorry, I didn't say hyphen, so that's okay.
Playoff hyphen riser.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk now about what it would mean if the Oklahoma City Thunder win a championship. What are the implications? Then I think there are a lot of implications if the Oklahoma City Thunder do win this year's finals.
Yeah, there are. And where to start? I think. And this is rehashing a certain Instagram and TikTok video that I put out. But I think if the Thunder do win this championship, they are not going to go big game hunting this offseason for stars, namely Kevin Durant. I think the Thunder are out on Giannis to begin with. I'll start by saying that because of Giannis's price tag. When you have a team that's as good as the Thunder, you're not going to pay as much as you would need to pay to go get Giannis and completely shake up the whole team. But if the guy, with Kevin Durant and his sort of discount price when you look at it compared to Giannis, the Thunder can actually pay the price for Durant and not completely, change the DNA of their team, which is why I think Kevin Durant is, within reason for the Thunder. But if the Thunder win, they have no need to go get Kevin Durant because, why would we change anything about this team that just won 68 games in an NBA championship? I think that's one implication. I think, in the greatness and legacy discussion that we so often like to have, I think this will cement SGA as, in my opinion, he's already a tier 1 player, but I think that it really bolsters the argument that he's a tier 1 player simply because he will have won an MVP, a Finals MVP, an NBA championship, and a scoring title all in the same season. That's goddamn ridiculous. And I don't know how many people have done that in the past, but it's probably a very exclusive list, and the people on that list are probably first ballot Hall of Famers, and SGA is going to be in some pretty elite company if he does that, and AJ Mitchell will be an NBA champion, which is probably my favorite implication. That is why I'm rooting for the Thunder,
Oh, first Thunder rooter.
Yeah. You know what? Well, and like here, I'm rooting for both teams. I hope both teams have fun. That's what I'm rooting for. I just wish both teams could win. But I've thought about it, and I think like I do like resonate with the Pacers underdog story, or the Pacers underdog story resonates with me, whichever sentence structure is grammatically correct. But I've had skin in the Thunder game for a while because I've been a Thunder truther for a while. And I like all the Thunder haters kind of piss me off. Like the Thunder get all this hate and all this flack, and I can't understand. I cannot understand why. I mean, like they're so good, they're so young, they did it right, and they don't play in a big market with an annoying fan base. Like I don't understand what there is not to like about the Thunder. They didn't spend all this money in free agency or rip teams off with trading. Like, no, like they developed players and drafted well. That's exactly what you fucking want teams to do. And then the team actually does it. And then, I don't like the Thunder. I mean,
I can tell you why if you're ready.
It's because Shea shoots too many free throws.
No, that's not it. That's the argument
and they act silly in their post game interviews.
That's the argument for why I don't like Shea. That's the argument why I don't like Shea. The argument for why people hate on the Thunder, and I'm not saying I am a Thunder hater, but the argument is because they're fucking scary. Like, you're right. They drafted they did this all homegrown. They got all these draft picks.
People hate what they don't understand.
And exact. Like, how is this team, if they win a championship this year, not infallible? How are they possibly ever going to lose a championship again? Yeah. It's like it will feel like they are on top of the league, and I will pick them to win a championship again next year, as I do with every current NBA champion. But it will feel a little bit more, it will feel like this team is going from an incredible team this year. They were the best defensive team. They are debatably the best offensive team in the league. They have the MVP, and they have a ton of young stars. And then those players are just going to get 1 year better, 1 year older, 1 year more experienced, and they can just run it back, and they will have an even better chance of winning the championship next year. The year after that, they would maybe a couple things are going to change. Like you could expect that the Thunder will win more than one championship, with this team, and that's why everybody's scared of them already. They're saying, I can already see the dynasty building right in front of me.
I see. May I offer to quell those fears?
Sure.
After the Warriors dynasty, and there was the new CBA a couple years ago, the NBA made it really, really, really hard to do what the Warriors did how many ever years ago, and that's what I think that's what people are scared of the Thunder doing. The Warriors had a homegrown dynasty, and then they added Kevin Durant to it. And I think people are scared of the Thunder, having this incredible homegrown team and then just adding players to make it better. It's going to be really hard to do. And it's way harder to do it now than when the Warriors did it 10 years ago, whatever it was. Because there's a different CBA, and the luxury tax threshold is a lot lower and a lot stricter. And you said, all these players are going to get 1 year older and 1 year better. Well, that they're also going to have one less year on their current contracts. And when it comes time to pay all these guys, guys are going to have to take discounts if everyone wants to stay on board. And we've seen in the past that usually doesn't happen. And so I think when it comes time to pay all these guys, the Thunder won't be able to. And I don't really see the Thunder being a team that's going to blow through the luxury tax because they don't have the same income as the Celtics or the Lakers. They play in Oklahoma City. I don't know who their owner is and how much he likes to spend or not spend, but I don't think the Thunder have the financial resources of the Warriors or the Celtics or the Lakers, and they're going to hit that luxury tax real soon. And they're going to have to make tough decisions about who to keep and who to let go. And granted, they have all the assets in the world to replace those guys, but even replacing those guys is harder to do than just keeping them.
Of course. I think you're correct in that, windows are shorter nowadays. It's because of these new rules, and you can't go out and just extend your window by extending the current players you have because the rules aren't the same. It will be much harder to extend their current best players, Jalen Williams, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Chet Holmgren, because they're all going to be worth max contracts. And if you have 3 players on max contracts, you can't re-sign, Alex Caruso because he'll be worth too much, especially if you are winning championships. These players become worth more. I think that also brings up a really interesting point because another implication that I thought, right when I thought of the Thunder win a championship, the next thing that came to my mind is that the Celtics will fade into non-existence. They will no longer be relevant. They will be irrelevant.
Their perch at their time at the perch or the top. I mean, I think the Thunder have already been, the Celtics have already been knocked off, regardless of whether the Thunder win or not. Because
I think it really changes. I think it really changes because if the Pacers win, then we can kind of like almost guarantee. Everybody would say this: okay, if the Celtics were in the finals, they also would have won. Like if the Pacers win, I think that everybody would say the Cavs would have won, the Celtics would have won, any other good team. Really, those are the only two teams that are good enough in the Eastern Conference to say that. And then going into this next year, you would not say that the Thunder are odds-on favorites, automatically. You would have to consider the previous champions in the Boston Celtics. But if the Thunder do win, I understand that the Boston Celtics are running into this problem that you just mentioned, which is they're not going to be able to pay the players that they currently have. They are going to get worse going into next season. And I think that is happening. They're going to happen very quickly for the Celtics. But if the Thunder do lose, I think the Celtics are very relevant next year. Maybe they're not the overall favorite like they were going into this year, but they're a team that has to be in at least top 3 consideration for most likely to win a championship.
I disagree because the winner of this finals won't heal Jason Tatum's Achilles. Whoever wins this finals, Jason Tatum's still not playing basketball next season.
I think in the playoffs, that was the idea is that he, if they can make the playoffs, then he would potentially be able to come back for a playoff run, and then all of a sudden everybody's going to want back in on the Celtics.
Okay, well, even if he does play in the playoffs, the Celtics are in store for a rough offseason. I think I'm not a Celtics insider, but from what I've sort of gathered, I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion that they're not going to be able to keep Derek White and Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis. I think they are going to have to choose at least one of those guys to say goodbye to. Perhaps maybe more. I think what happened to the Niners is going to happen to the Celtics this offseason.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Definitely, they're going to lose some players. They won't be able to retain everybody they had. I think the 49ers probably do haunt their nightmares as they do for most owners right now. Unfortunately, really unfortunate.
we really couldn't get through this episode without bringing up the Niners, off season from hell, huh?
It's all right. It's faith in the young guys this year.
Faithful to the day, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what else will it mean for the Thunder? I think that it easily supplants them, puts them right there at the top of the NBA, and a team that is rising. Not a team like, when I'd say when the Nuggets won the championship, it kind of did feel like it wasn't necessarily going to be their year right away. I said,
I don't know, dude. that is definitely not how you felt.
That's not how I thought. I'm talking about the general consensus. Like everybody thought at that point, okay, Jokic is the best player in the world. There's kind of nobody touching him, but is this team an unbeatable team? No one really. I don't think anybody felt.
Yeah,
like
I don't think anyone was worried about the Thunders running the NBA like a dynasty. The same way that
Nuggets, you mean?
People. Yeah.
I mean, and now people are worried about what the Thunder can do. Just because of the situation that they're in. They are.
Sorry, did I say
youngest.
Thunder?
You did, yeah. But
sorry,
it's
Nuggets.
Right.
Nuggets.
Yeah.
Just to avoid any potential confusion, when the Nuggets won their championship, I don't think anyone was worried about them running the NBA like a dynasty.
And now the Thunder are the youngest team, or one of the. I think they are the youngest team in the NBA, and they have the most draft capital in the NBA. And it's like fuck. It's kind of like me in my dynasty league right now, where I have Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, and Bijan Robinson. It's just kind of like impossible to stop. Fantasy football coming soon, by the way. So it means a lot, and I think we will find out when you guys are listening to this. Most likely, the game has already happened, and you will know which one of these post game takes you should really be listening to. And I'd say just one more thing on maybe what it means if the Pacers do lose. Obviously, if the Thunder win, the Pacers will lose. I think the opinion on Tyrese Halliburton is going to reset real fast.
Right.
It's going to go back to, okay, bro.
Which I don't think is fair.
Player.
Which I don't think is fair.
I mean, it's true. It will come down to one game, and it will mean so much about them, both of these teams and their players as players going forward, even though it literally has no impact at all on what kind of player they will be next year.
They wake up the next morning still the same human being.
Yeah, but people are gonna flip pretty hard because
and I think likewise if the Thunder lose, Thunder haters will be out in full force, and the Thunder will not be taken seriously, which I also don't think is fair.
I think that the reaction to Halliburton will be very similar to Jimmy Butler when Jimmy Butler brought the 8 seed Heat to the finals. After that season when they lost, and Jimmy Butler did not play well at the end of those finals, but after they lost, there was so much momentum. Oh, Jimmy Butler's a top 10 player in the league. Jimmy Butler is you need Jimmy Butler because in the playoffs he's just a different guy. And then afterwards, there's still a level of respect for Jimmy Butler that wasn't there before. That's like, okay, he can actually take a team, to a playoffs, to a finals, even if they're a shitty team. But it's not like, oh, everybody's so scared of Jimmy Butler dominating the league. No one's ranking Jimmy Butler in the top 10 anymore. No one's ranking him maybe in the top 20. Not really. Actually, not after these playoffs. So I think it'll be very similar to what happened with Jimmy Butler, maybe to a lesser extent.
Well, I actually I think, after Jimmy Butler was eliminated in the finals, he was given the benefit of the doubt through the next season. I don't think Tyrese Halliburton will get the benefit of the doubt. I think people are just going to be like, oh, Tyrese Halliburton, you're just a regular old all-star kind of guy.
Just toss him to the side.
Yeah.
He's done with.
Yeah, I think both of these teams deserve flowers no matter how the game goes. If the Thunder win, I think the Pacers still deserve flowers for taking the Thunder to 7 games. Again, overperforming. Overperforming does not mean that you don't deserve it or you didn't earn it, or it's a fluke, or it means anything less. Overperforming just means you did better than expected, and you did better than you punched above your weight. I think that's a good way to look at it. And that deserves flowers.
It's commendable.
And I think even if the Pacers lose, I think the East is still pretty wide open next year, and I don't think the Pacers should. I think the Pacers will, but shouldn't be written off because that East is so wide open. And the Pacers have been to now back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals, and with how easy the East will be next year, they can run that conference next year. And if the Thunder lose, people are going to be hard on them, but they still won 68 games and had like the best net rating of all time or something like that, maybe a top 5 or top 3 net rating of all time. And were historically dominant, and have all the pieces in the world to get right back and win one, if not more, championships in the next how many ever years. So either team, positivity podcast, but I think both teams deserve flowers, no matter who wins tomorrow night.
I'm super excited for the game.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
who
great.
do you think's let's come down to business. Yeah, prediction time.
I think that the Thunder are gonna win by a lot. I think it's going to be a blowout.
Interesting. To be honest, I hadn't thought about the score or by how much, but I do think the Thunder will win. I think playing at home helps, and I think the Thunder are a better team, and I think the Thunder, more than the Pacers, believe that it's their time and believe that this is their destiny. I think the Thunder are destined to win the championship this year with how lights out incredible they've been all year long. They will be looking to avenge the ghosts of their in-season tournament finals loss. By the way, the Bucks, I predicted a Bucks championship all the way back in whenever. They did win the in-season tournament, okay?
Yes.
The Bucks are in-season tournament champions. The Bucks are champions. So I get half credit for that.
If the Pacers win, then they lost to the eventual champion. So second best team in the league, potentially.
Right, yeah. Anyways, I think I think the Thunder feel like this is their destiny. I think they are playing for destiny, whereas the Pacers are playing for an upset. And the Thunder being the better team playing at home. That's why I'm picking them.
Kill us in the comments if we're wrong. So we have another very important topic to talk about on this podcast, and that is the San Francisco Giants acquiring Rafael Devers in a trade. This was about 4 or 5 days ago now at this point. Since then, Rafael Devers has played in 4 games, I believe. And today, he just hit a home run against the Boston Red Sox, propelling the Giants. It was a 2-run home run. Giants win by 1. It was 3-2 at the end of the game. And this is the biggest deal in like 20 years. The biggest deal that I can remember as a Giants fan.
Oh yeah.
And obviously I am 24 years old. So any deal that happened that was bigger than this was for players that I really don't know. And I was listening to this on the radio, and I'm listening to Mike Krukow talk about it. He's like, this is like when Rusty Jaggensworth was traded for. I don't know who the fuck that is, but it's a big deal. The Giants have a player.
Is Rafael Devers our generation's Rusty Dagenworth?
I goddamn hope so. Devers is the best player on the Giants now. We've acquired a player that is more valuable than any other player that we had. A guy who is 28 years old and has a career OPS of 858. You can listen to my clip on this.
Well, is that updated?
This is not updated. I bet it might be higher now that he hit a home run today. He's hit 215 career home runs. He's on a gigantic long contract. That is not updated. It is now 216.
There you go.
As of today. So he is, he's an incredible player. He's the best hitter that the Giants have seen in a very long time. He's really a pure hitter. And he brings so much to the Giants. It's like, where has this guy been? We've been searching for him everywhere. Somebody who can hit 30 home runs a year, who can hit above 100 RBIs. And right now, Devers is on pace to do both of those things. We thought it was going to be Adames. Based on his stats last year, we said, okay, we're going to get our best hitter in Willy Adames.
Yeah, but Adames coming in was nowhere near as big as Devers coming in.
No, not at all, because Devers is a better player than Adames. Adames had a great season last year, but it's not like a guy who was
Devers is this guy who's
15.
Year in, year out, an all-star.
Yeah, I mean, literally, he came into the league at the age of 19, and he's been that good the entire time. He's just been the best player on the Red Sox ever since they lost Mookie Betts, and he won a championship with them in 2018. That was a
long time ago.
That was a long time ago, and he was a young, great player back then, and now he's in his prime. He's 28 years old, and he's got a lot more to give. In baseball, obviously you can hit your prime at age 32, and I think he's got more in the tank, and the Giants are going to have him for the rest of his career. I think he'll go down potentially as a career Giant. It will depend on whether or not the Giants win a World Series with him. If the Giants do, then yeah, he is a career Giant. And what did it cost to get him? It cost Jordan Hicks, Kyle Harrison, James Tibbs III, and Jose Bayo. So not much.
Yeah, all things considered.
Really not that much. We talked a lot about Kyle Harrison before. What happened with Kyle. Actually, I talked about this on my solo podcast. What was going on with Kyle Harrison. He's only 23 years old, and he was the Giants' best pitching prospect at some point. He's a lefty, and he was really known for a fastball that jumps. And he was throwing like 97, and it felt like it was more than 97. That's what they said. They said that the fastball came off like it was more like 100 rather than 97.
And what does that mean?
It just means that it's harder to pick up.
How so?
I don't hit at major league level, so I can't tell you.
So this is just word. Yeah, this is just word of mouth.
I'm speaking from what I've heard about what it is like to.
You have not stood in the box and taken swings against Kyle Harrison.
Never hit against the guy.
I just a fastball that is 97 but feels like 100. That just doesn't make sense to me.
I'll give you an example. So Madison Bumgarner, right? Madison Bumgarner threw like 94, 95, but they would say like it felt like 97. Because
why did it feel like 97?
Because he would step so far close to the plate, and it would just be a really long time before the ball actually came out of his hand. So I think that the actual reaction time, like something about the way that he delivers the ball, it makes it harder to react to. So I couldn't tell you exactly
that's a sufficient answer, a much more sufficient answer than your first try.
Sorry. Thank you for allowing me to edit that.
Yeah.
But what happened to him later in his career, not later in his career, when he was 23 years old, was that fastball fell off. He was throwing 97. It came on down
97
to like
started to feel like 97.
No, it physically went down to 92.
Oh, okay.
It actually fell off. And the spin rate was losing a lot too. And at that point, I was thinking, oh shit, Kyle Harrison got to the major league level and realized he can't use the sticky stuff anymore. So that's why it fell off. But since this year, he's put it back together. He went back down to the minors and he figured out whatever mechanical issue it was that was causing him to lose that velocity. And then he came back. But it still remains, Kyle Harrison has like a 4.5 career ERA, and eventually he can be great. He is good enough on paper to be a major league pitcher at age 23. So at age 28, when he's in his prime, how good can he be? I think he can be very good. But he also can be bad. We've seen him
it's
have
like
a mechanical issue.
You look at Harrison's trajectory, he's not projectorying to be the Rafael Devers of left-handed pitchers. So it's, like you need to give up something to get something, and what they gave up in Kyle Harrison was far less than what you give. Excuse me. What they had to give up in Kyle Harrison is far less than what you get in a prime Rafael Devers.
100%, because Rafael Devers is a great hitter. That's not going to change. Like, he's been a great hitter since he was a kid.
Yeah, he's perennial.
He's an excellent. We know that for a fact. If Rafael Devers has a month where he doesn't hit, he'll put it back together. He can figure it out. If Kyle Harrison has a month where he's not throwing his fastball correctly, we don't know if he can put that back together. We have no idea. But what else happened on top of that? Jordan Hicks, who was pitching horribly this year,
right? And he's also, he's when he hits free agency, there are going to be a million other pitchers that you can get that can pitch just as well as Jordan Hicks. He's a veteran journeyman,
fill in.
Yeah. Plug and play kind of guy, and there are a million guys.
At his best, he was a good reliever.
Hicks. I think Hicks back in his day was a very, very good relief pitcher. It's not 2021 anymore. So
yeah, and as a starter, it just really never clicked. He had a couple stretches where it was very good, but obviously it fell apart. It's not 2021, and we'll see what the Red Sox decide to do with him, if they want to keep him in the bullpen or continue this route of starting pitching with Jordan Hicks. But in any case, he's not going to, move the needle very much.
Yeah.
And then those two minor leaguers, James Tibbs is the one that really sticks out because he was the first round pick of the Giants in 2024. I believe he came from Florida State. And I remember when the Giants drafted him, I actually watched the MLB draft, which is a crazy thing to say. And I was like, oh man, this guy's him. He had, pretty good stats, but he's a little smaller of a guy, left-handed hitter, but he had a lot of power. And they actually called it a bit of a reach when we took him at 13th overall. And he has been somewhat solid in the minors. He's in single A right now, and I think he's hitting like 260 with like 10 home runs. So he's just, he's been a decent single A player. But he did play 3 or 4 years in college, so he's on the older end. You might have expected him to play a little bit better so far in the minors. So he might be good down the line, but really, the point is,
my thing with prospects is, they're prospects.
Guys that might be good one day.
Right. Well, it's like
we
prospects.
Got Rafael Devers.
Yeah. Prospects come a dime a dozen. And if he was really all that, he wouldn't be the fourth mention in a trade for Rafael Devers. Prospects don't win championships.
Rafael Devers won a championship in 2018.
Yeah. Well, no, and it's like it's like, and this James Tibbs and this other prospect they gave up. They don't even have a trajectory right now. Just because it's too early in their careers to tell, and that's just kind of the thing with baseball. It's like you don't really know what you have until they're already there. These prospects, hey, they could be all-stars one day, or neither of them might. It might be that neither of them ever see the major leagues. Who knows?
I mean,
that's how it works with prospects, And it's like
Joey Bart.
Yeah.
Look at Marco Luciano, players that dominate in minor leagues, and they are guaranteed hit prospects, and they come up to the majors and they can't figure it out.
Well, and half the guys in the MLB were not high draft picks or prospects with good pedigrees. They just play good ball and end up in the major leagues. So it's like whatever these guys amount to, who fucking knows? So if you can trade these two, who fucking knows, and your sixth and best starter for Rafael Devers, it's like I think this is an A+ trade for the Giants.
Giants avoid giving up Bryce Eldridge, who is their number one prospect,
right?
And just got called up to AAA last week, but is a huge power bat, lefty first baseman, who kind of everybody would have expected if the Giants are trading for Rafael Devers, you're going to be giving up Bryce Eldridge. But they avoided that. The main piece in this trade was Kyle Harrison.
Is this the Luka Doncic trade of the MLB?
A lot of people compared it to that immediately. It's a player that is young and very good. I definitely don't think Rafael Devers is nearly as good as Luka Doncic is in terms of NBA, but I looked at a rankings recently, and Rafael Devers is like the 20th best player in the MLB, according to whatever website I looked at. And I think that's about accurate.
According to my source.
My source told me that Rafael Devers was about 20th. Obviously, Luka Doncic is like the third best player, so it's a little bit different. But
Luka Doncic is
matter.
in Tier 1C.
That's correct.
So is Rafael Devers better or worse than Tier 1C?
I would put Rafael Devers probably in Tier 2 of MLB players. That's probably fair.
You think he's like, who's his player comp? Like Jason Tatum or
that's
Anthony
a good
Edwards?
question. I think, man. I think Tatum is probably
Tyrese
a little bit...
Halliburton?
No, he's better than Halliburton.
Devers is
He
better
might be
than Halliburton.
He might be Halliburton.
I guess it depends what happens tomorrow.
It does. It really does. Yeah. If Halliburton wins a championship, then yes, it's like trading for Tyrese Halliburton. Buster Posey did it, and that was just shocking to me because I came on this podcast and I said when the Giants hired Buster Posey, it was like, well, everybody hates Farhan. Let's find somebody who nobody will hate. It's Buster Posey. Obviously, no one's going to hate him because he's the best player the Giants have had in 20 years. But he figured it out. He
did it.
He's
did.
performing.
Yeah, in 6 months, he did what Farhan refused to.
So shout out to Buster Posey. I mean,
this is like, I feel like this is the biggest trade in the MLB since the Soto trade. And I feel like this is the biggest move that the Giants have made in my lifetime. Maybe since acquiring Barry Bonds. Because, obviously, and that's not to say Devers is the best player they've had since Barry Bonds. I think there were a number of players on those 2010, 2012, 2014 teams that were better than Devers. But, all those guys were, either drafted and came up through the minors or acquired as prospects, or if they did acquire them from other teams, they weren't as big as Rafael Devers is now when the Giants got them way back when. So, this is the biggest... and certainly most aggressive move the Giants have made in your lifetime, my lifetime, I think it's fair to say. And that's what Giants fans have been begging, screaming, and pleading for the past how many ever years? Call it 10 years. It's great. This is great that the Giants have sort of bucked the trend of being too passive and cautious, and it's like the Giants have tried to play Moneyball when they don't need to. They can actually go out and spend and get good players. Go fucking do it. Go get you players. There's different. You can get good players and still not win. Get you good players who are going to help you win, and I feel like that's Rafael Devers.
I've heard rumors that the Giants might be looking to continue adding.
Kyle Tucker.
Kyle Tucker is the guy who I saw recently, which I don't think he's figured out his contract situation with the Cubs, which I think is why potentially they might want to move him. I know they're playing pretty well this year, so it doesn't make sense. Maybe it's just a contract thing. You might have thought, hey, why would the Red Sox move on from Rafael Devers at this point in the year?
Right.
Exactly. So things just happen.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about this whole Rafael Devers third base scandal controversy. Because Rafael Devers sure seems happy playing first base and DHing for the Giants. He was a little less than happy to do that in Boston. And say what you will about how much of an impact that had, but I don't think you can deny that was at least a major part of him getting traded.
I mean, from everything that we heard, right? So he came out and said that he wanted to play third base, even though that the Red Sox had acquired Alex Bregman, who is objectively a better defensive third baseman than him. He didn't want to move over to first base. He was then relegated to playing DH for a long time, which he was okay with. He was doing it. But what happened afterwards, I had been hearing that he basically was not in contact with the ownership or was ghosting them for some reason. There was some sort of disconnect between
was it the ownership or was it the GM?
I'm pretty sure it was the owner that was talking to him that he did not reply to. And I don't doubt that his relationship with the GM was also probably on the rocks towards the end there. So
I've read or seen some stuff that I think that's a safe assumption.
Right. So maybe the fact that, after he comes to the Giants, where Buster Posey is obviously being the Giants are trying to treat this guy very well. The problem was less of, I can't play third base. There must, maybe there's some sort of hey, you didn't respond to my message, so I'm not going to respond to your message. Just some miscommunication that leads to animosity between them. It stemmed from this issue with the third base, but perhaps it could have been overcame by a sit-down conversation with each other. But they just weren't able to do that. I don't think Rafael Devers is a bad guy, and if he was so set on playing third base, then when he came to the Giants, he would have said the same thing. He would have said, I want to play third base. I don't care. Matt Chapman is.
I don't think Rafael Devers lacks the self-awareness to know that Matt Chapman has third base locked down.
Yeah, maybe he felt like he was a better third baseman than Alex Bregman. I don't know if that's the case. I know he's not a better third baseman than Alex Bregman, but yeah, at least he's humbled by, if nothing else, then he would be humbled by Matt Chapman.
He got mogged by Matt Chapman and gave up on third base.
Yeah. Exactly. And he's happy to play first base, it sounds like, or DH. And I really think that going forward, the plan will be for him to continue DHing and, have more
as long as Matt Chapman is on the team, he's not playing third base. So.
Yeah, no, he's not. He will not be playing third base. But the first base position right now is split between Dom Smith and Wilmer Flores, depending on the pitcher.
Okay.
And I think that's just going to be the plan going forward. And, potentially if Dom Smith ends up falling off towards.
Yeah, I was going to say, is Dom Smith a long-term solution for a World Series team at first base?
No, but he's been playing very well.
Yes.
So far this year, but
like I've been saying, who knows? It seems like every season the Dodgers win 100 games, some random guy has a career year for them.
Totally.
Maybe Dom Smith has that, but I don't think that's something that you want to bet on.
No, I agree. It's not something you want to bet on. And the long-term plan is to have Bryce Eldridge play first base because he is a lefty first baseman. That is his position. And I think Devers will be the DH going forward. He will be our long-term DH. And if something does happen eventually, if Chapman goes down and we don't have an elite defensive third baseman in Casey Schmidt, or Casey Schmidt's really slumping at the plate, then that's when you say, hey, Rafi, grab a glove. You're going to play third base.
Yeah.
Or first base.
Yeah. I think so. This is my take on the Devers Boston third base situation. And I'll start by saying I don't really care. I'm not a Red Sox fan. And at the end of the day, this whole situation ended up with Devers being on the Giants. And as long as he doesn't do that to the Giants, which it sounds like he won't, not really my problem. But if I was a Red Sox fan or a member of the Red Sox staff or a player on the Red Sox, I would be fucking pissed. Because Rafael Devers, you are not a third baseman. You are a baseball player. The position you play is where your coach tells you to play. And if you're getting paid $280 million to play baseball, you're going to play wherever the fuck your coach wants you to play. And if you're not playing well enough at third base for the team or for your team to go out and then sign another third baseman, go play first base. Oh, one of your teammates, breaks his leg in half and you still won't play first base for him. What kind of fucking teammate are you, dude? You play wherever you're fucking supposed to play. And it's not like he got asked to move to catcher or shortstop or center field or a position that's hard. He got asked to play first, or he asked to play first base and asked to designate a hit. If you get asked to DH, fucking sweet, dude. I have to go swing a bat 3 or 4 times a game, and I don't have to worry about balls coming my way, hit 110 miles an hour. Yeah, I'll fucking DH. Or if you want to play first base, you're getting paid $300 million. Be a team player, dude. Do what you're asked. You're being paid to be a baseball player, not be a third baseman. And again, don't really care. Not my problem. It worked out well for the Giants. But from the perspective of a Red Sox, like it seemed like when I was following this situation, I was pretty team Red Sox in the whole situation. I did not feel much sympathy for Devers, and I thought he was acting like a diva.
Yeah,
but
no,
hey, welcome to San Francisco.
He was a diva, and I didn't like him.
But now he's on the Giants.
Changed.
Buster Posey talked some sense into him. Matt Chapman mogged him, like we said.
Yes.
And yeah, like I said, I don't have a problem with the guy as long as he doesn't do it in a Giants uniform. But watching from afar without any skin in the game, I was kind of like, ugh, dude, this is not a good look for Devers. Like I do not respect how Devers has handled this. But now he's a Giant, so I feel differently.
One thing I noticed about Rafi Devers is that he packs the fattest dip. Like it's like his whole mouth is like filled. It's like what?
Yeah, he's got chubby cheeks too. Like
yeah, but you can still tell. You
can tell
you got a wad in there. Like, and that's the kind of go.
That's who I want. Yeah, that's who I want hitting third for me.
Yeah, I want a fucking Venezuela. I don't know if he's Venezuelan. Is he Venezuelan?
I'm not sure.
Guy from wherever he's from who packs the fattest dip of all time, who weighs 30 pounds over what he should. Yeah, hitting third and hitting bombs.
Yeah, he's not the best looking human to ever grace the earth, and that's just how I want it. Rafael Devers is. Oh, what does it not say? Oh, he's Dominican.
Okay, yeah,
should have known.
Come on, lip packing Dominican fat guy.
Yeah,
3-hitter. That's what I see.
That's a good ingredient.
As a 3-hitter, what does it mean for the Giants lineup? It means a lot. The Giants lineup becomes pretty damn good, I think, for this top of the order.
Yeah.
Yastrzemski's been hitting the cover off the ball, but when Lee figures it out again, you got Lee, Devers, then Ramos, and add Matt Chapman into the mix there.
Yeah, Ramos has evolved into a great hitter.
The Devers Ramos, and I've seen this in the first 4 games of the Giants. When you have Ramos behind Devers, you have to choose someone to pitch to.
Right.
It's not like Lee's struggling, so great. We'll throw him a bunch of fastballs, and we can walk Ramos if he gets gets up there, and then throw him all off speed. No, you have Devers and then Ramos together, and that's a nasty combo. And one of those guys is going to get someone to hit. And what happened today was both of those players hit home runs.
Well, and hopefully that will. And granted, the Giants' problems have not been creating runners in scoring position opportunities. It's been capitalizing on them. But hopefully it will create more runners on base opportunities for the Giants to then hopefully capitalize, or probably won't capitalize on.
I just think it'll give both of those players better pitches to hit. Having Devers in the lineup will have every other player on the Giants lineup in a better position to hit balls harder, hit balls farther. Yeah, and I think that's, we're going to keep an eye on this, obviously, for the rest of his career, which will be at least 8 years, according to his contract. He's got a $330 million 11-year contract that he signed about 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago. So he's in the third year of that deal. So he's under contract for the next 8 years until 2032 or something like that.
Sweet.
Very excited. We do have another thing to talk about, though.
Yeah. Stanley Cup.
The end of this, yes.
The Stanley
we have a
Cup.
champion.
We have a champion, and it's the same champion from before. The Florida Panthers have defeated the Edmonton Oilers in 6 games, and this is just kind of like a weird ending, because it's like, after all that, the Panthers just won it again. What I kind of thought, what I sort of thought and felt the collective feeling was coming into this championship was, last year the Panthers won the first 3 games, then the Oilers won the next 3 games, and then the Panthers won Game 7. So okay, all right, the Oilers dug themselves in a hole, but very clearly they figured something out. Even though they didn't get it done, they're coming this year. And then the Oilers, I think, won Game 1, and then they won Game 4, so the series was tied 2-2. Like, all right, Oilers are in better shape than they were last year. This is the Oilers series to lose, and lo and behold, they lost it. And it's just kind of like, oh shit, like, after all that, the Panthers won this series in even less games than they did last year.
If you're an Oilers fan, you're like, fuck. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's only getting worse.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, if you're an Oilers fan, you're like, fuck, after all that, we lost in less games than we did last year. Even though
I would feel so bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's just,
it's like the Niners.
Yeah.
It's literally like we have another shot at beating Patrick Mahomes, and we got closer the second time around.
Yeah,
but,
we did.
But it hurts.
Yeah, hurts.
It hurts more the second time.
It hurts. And yeah, Brock Purdy's like the Connor McDavid of the NFL, so.
Yes, only more handsome.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, if you're the Oilers, you're like, fuck, what do we do now? But yeah, I mean, the Panthers are the best team in the NHL. They in the last 3 seasons, they have played 12 playoff series, and they are 11-1 in them. That's batshit crazy good. The Panthers are the best. The Panthers are the best team in the NHL. And the Oilers have been the second best team in the NHL for the last 2 seasons and have nothing to show for it. And it's just it's heartbreaking in every sense of the word for the Oilers. But the Panthers, last year the Panthers were playing for their first championship. This year they were playing for a dynasty. And the Panthers were good enough to win them both. And if you're the Panthers, it's like, all right, what now? Well, if you're the Panthers, just keep doing what you're doing. If you're the Oilers, what now? Shit, what now? Not that this is an Oilers podcast and we need to have the answer for that. But something worth noting, Connor McDavid is a free agent in 12 months' time. And take a look around the league. All right, who has the best prospect pool in the NHL? Who has the best 18 or 19-year-old player in the NHL? And who has the most cap space in the NHL? Well, all those answers happen to be the same team. And that team happens to be your San Jose Sharks.
Oh, God.
So start the Connor McDavid to the Sharks next season rumors right now.
Oh, my God.
This is a big season for the Sharks.
This is literally
to
like
prove
Giannis
themselves
to
Connor McDavid. Yeah, this is the Sharks' opportunity to either A, trade for Connor McDavid, even though they have nothing to trade him for, or B, the Sharks have 12 months to get their act together and convince Connor McDavid that he wants to spend the rest of his career in San Jose. And yeah,
if you can't win in Edmonton, pack it up and move to San Jose.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I mean McDavid and Celebrini. That's the whole pitch.
The one player who is coming for his throne, his title, is Macklin Celebrini right now.
Right,
He's just gonna go ahead and join him.
Right. I mean, just think about your legacy being the first player to bring a cup to San Jose. Fuck following Gretzky's footsteps and winning a bunch of cups in Edmonton. That's been done before. How about doing something original for once in your life, McDavid? Come to San Jose and win a cup.
Yeah, bro.
Create your own legacy. It's funny. About a year ago, Leon Draisaitl, who is the second best player on the Oilers and arguably the second best player in the NHL as well, he was in the same situation. A year ago, his contract was up in a year, and there actually was a Draisaitl to San Jose rumor. Because the Sharks have all this cap space, and Draisaitl is German, and the Sharks owner is German, and apparently that's all you need to create a rumor.
That's it. And the San Jose Chronicle.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then Leon Draisaitl ended up signing the biggest contract in NHL history for 8 years to stay with the Oilers. Odds are that's probably what's gonna happen to McDavid too. But McDavid is coming into his contract year, having suffered this, back-to-back 2 years of just utter devastation of losing these 2 cup finals in about as heartbreaking fashion as possible. And there is, I think it's more likely than not that he re-signs in Edmonton. But there is a world where he, decides to leave Edmonton and tries to win a cup somewhere else.
This is
possible.
This is like if you were an Inter Miami fan. Like, you just happen to be an Inter Miami fan. You're like, oh, I love this soccer team. You hear we're going to get Messi. You're like, oh, you fucking serious? Messi's going to go to Inter Miami?
Yeah.
Hey.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes
if
it works out.
Messi can go to Inter Miami, McDavid can go to the Sharks. Yeah. I mean, I think odds are McDavid re-signs in Edmonton. But there is a world where he doesn't, and then he either plays out the rest of his contract and goes somewhere in free agency, or the Oilers say, we are not fucking losing Connor McDavid for free. We are going to trade him and get something back.
Celebrini and Will Smith.
Yeah. No.
You say no?
I say no. One or the other. I mean, it's still way too early in the in the process to even think about, like, okay, if McDavid leaves, what teams would he go to? Who fucking knows? I mean, McDavid's so good, any team's going to want him. He could fit well on any team. So who knows where he's going to go, and whether he would go over via a trade or free agency, and if it's a trade, what kind of return he would get. Nobody even knows yet. But keep your eye on Connor McDavid, because the Panthers have defeated the Oilers and become Stanley Cup champions for the second year in a row.
That's right. And that is going to do it for episode 70 of Unentitled Sports. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Peace!